Hello, everybody. As one of the guys at YouTube says, keep it real, so I'm keeping it real. When I clap my hands, what I did is put a spike into where I could mesh the video with the audio. I'm going to place these videos that I'm going to be doing for the next little bit. I started to say, I don't know how long I'll be doing them. But I'm going to put them under a playlist called Growing Old on YouTube, because that's exactly what I have done. Rather than to have this video long, I'm going to try to bring you up to date before I tell you how I came to YouTube. I worked in the automated technology department in Oak Ridge. We had a guy who worked beside of me, and this was back in the early stages of the internet. And we had nothing but dial-up. If you're a younger person and you don't know anything about dial-up, if you can go back to that time of the internet, it had a specific sound. So anyway, when I would come in the morning, I would hear him fire that thing up. And I had a golden opportunity that I could have been in on the ground floor of some of this, but I had not displayed an interest in the internet because I had other things to do in the company. So anyway, we had our desktop, but we only had DOS. We were operating with DOS. And the first thing I remember on the internet, if we had a project, you could go on the internet and just see text, documents, and read documents. That's it. And then Microsoft came out with Windows, and Netscape came out with a GUI interface, and then Microsoft came out with Internet Explorer, and that's when things really took off. But my friend and I had done a video, and this was later, so let me back up. I was reading some documents on that had been published by Microsoft, and they were talking about an encoder that you could download free. So I went to the store and I purchased a webcam. I think I paid $19.95 for it. And I downloaded that encoder. And what that encoder would do, it would create an IP address. So my friend in California, I was talking to him one day, and I told him, I said, I believe you can see me on your computer. And I gave him the IP address, and he saw me through that little $19.95 webcam. And I told him, I said, I'm going to raise my hand. And I did that. And I said, tell me after, I'm going to tell you I just raised my hand. You tell me when you see it. So I raised my hand, and I don't know how many seconds went by. And he said, yeah, I see you just raised your hand. So it was slow. And what I would do is my wife and I, if we went on a road trip, I would turn that little webcam on, use that Microsoft encoder, and it would create an IP address, and I could go on I didn't even have a laptop, and I could go on, because most of these motels had a computer set up, and I could go and get on the internet, and I could see my room back home. This was long before anybody was doing anything with video, and that's why I'm saying I could have gotten in on the ground floor of this. But that's, well, you can't cry over spilled milk. So anyway, let's go up to 1995, and I retired. Still, only using the internet to play around and use that encoder. I mean, I was putting songs on there, which now you would have a problem with copyright. So I was doing it all with that little encoder that you could download free from Microsoft. And I read one day, this was in 2005. I'd been retired 10 years. And it was talking about two guys by the name of, I had to look it up because I did a video earlier and I had their names mixed up. But the name of the two guys, Steve Chen and Chad Hurley, and they had created a internet site called YouTube, and you could place your videos on their site. But I only read about it and didn't pursue it. I can't believe this, but this is just the way I am. And then I read another article, and this happened in February 14th, 2000, or November. Let's just say November 2006. I read where they had sold their YouTube to Google for $1.65 billion. And that raised my radar, finally. So I went out and created a YouTube account. So I've been on YouTube since 2006. Not with the account that I'm using on this long video. This account that I have now, I created in 2011. But anyway, over the years, my first videos that I placed on YouTube, this little $19.95 webcam, and all of this was going on. And I'm going to tell you another thing that, like you say, you can't cry over spilled milk. If any of these guys at YouTube are listening to this, they're probably saying, you're a dummy. The guy that sat beside of me that was pursuing the internet, this was back before Google even got going big time. And I believe he was on the ground floor of purchasing stock in Google. See, I could have purchased stock in Google at the time. His thing was purchasing or playing the stock market. So I didn't. But I started having fun putting videos out there. And at that time, a few people who really had a personality suited for YouTube, and at that time, because the video quality was not that great. Well, it's just like that encoder. I was sending my image out, and I could see the image in a motel, but the quality was not up to par. But YouTube started to increase their quality, and as they increased their quality, I would upgrade my video cameras. And now on YouTube, you can put 4K, I don't know exactly what the limit is now, but I'm just going to say 4K. I have a couple of videos that I did in 4K with a GoPro. But I've seen a lot of changes. They came out with a partner program. And now if you fall within a certain, what YouTube considers the minimums of what they require, you can sign up for an account and you can monetize your videos. So not only is it a fun place to be, if you're popular enough, you can make some pretty good money on YouTube. Now, people like myself, you've got to have a large volume of viewers to really get into what you could call making money on YouTube. But that's how I've grown up with YouTube. And it's just like purchasing stock in Google is like when I was in West Palm Beach and Orlando in the 50s. Some of us GIs would sit around and talk about, now this is in the 50s, oh, if we had only known then what we know now, you could buy an acre of land. Now, don't quote me on this, but I think this is pretty close. But Kissimmee was just a little place in the road, and they were subdividing areas of Kissimmee, and you could purchase a building lot down there for $600. And we thought that was big money. Of course, a bunch of GIs who weren't making that much money anyway. But the way I think, and this is the way I've always been, let me see how I can say this. I don't really worry about doing this or doing that. If you do your best and you try to do right with what you're doing, whether you're an employee or what you're doing, if you try to stay above board, in the long run, if you do that, I think having a satisfied mind is, I don't know if it's better than having a bunch of money or not. It'd be nice to have both. But I'm talking about millions and millions of dollars, which, I mean, these two guys, Steve Chen and Chad Hurley, sold it for $1.65 billion. I think one of them now is worth out like $330 million. It has another company. But that's a long-winded story about the internet. And the thing that interested me during that time was relational database management systems, and that's what I did. And I learned 2 computer programs. I worked with Oracle. I was a whiz using SQL, which is a query language. Most report writers use SQL. I could write reports. In fact, I worked for the Air Force. I was working for the Air Force when I turned 62. It's when they upgraded all of their software after the Y2K, and I went to work as a consultant with the Quality Assurance Department, testing, and of course, they knew my background, and when I reported on base, they said, we want you to test the reports, and that's what I did. The contract was for 6 months, and I worked for 9 months. They held me over. And in my personal use, I created quite a few relational database management systems with Microsoft Access, which use Visual Basic. I wouldn't have, well, let me put it this way. I don't consider myself a guru on those 2 computer systems, BASIC and SQL. Oracle called it SQL Plus. But Oracle used a version of SQL in their language like Access used Visual Basic. And even though Visual Basic is considered a basic language, you could do a lot of fancy stuff with Access, which I did. But now, at my age, if I decided to go and apply for a job at where I worked in Oak Ridge, I could not do the work now because I've grown old on YouTube. I don't know, I may have gotten a little too personal with this video, but hey, keep it real. That's what it is. We'll see you. And I've got a little remote here that I can turn my camera off with. That's what I'm going to do right now. See you later. I'm going to put this under a playlist called Growing Old on YouTube.